All right. Hey, guys. So this is kind of what hopefully you've been doing your assignment over section two. Uh, this section is kind of the section that probably opens your eyes to psychology a little bit, to what a person can do with a psychology degree, or how to be a psychologist, different fields of psychology that you can go into. And this is kind of one that everybody finds kind of interesting. I'm going to go through this, and usually in class it takes a couple days. So I'm going to do the whole thing, stop it at some point, and take a break, and then come back to it. You're going to have the whole weekend. I do expect you to watch it, and I would go through and even have your that assignment up and go through these things. I also sent you guys a video. I got one email about what we thought about the video. You should watch it. It's about working at Google, and you'll be amazed. Like, you guys are going to go want to work at Google. But anyway, so what we're going to talk about are the major fields of psychology, and talk about specialists in psychology, like the applied fields. Like, they do one thing, and then they add psychology to it. So here we go. So different types of psychologists is what we're going to start talking about. I imagine that, like this cartoon here, if my wife and I went to a marriage counselor, if I went in there and it was a female marriage counselor, I'd be like, this stinks. I'm not gonna do very well. She's gonna take her side all the time. But that's not actually what happens. Surprisingly, psychologists are pretty level-headed. They're not just huggy and caring and all. I mean, they are caring, but they understand the human mind and how it works. They'd probably understand you, and you'd be really surprised. All right. So the first one is a clinical psychologist. This is what most psychologists do. They have their office. You might look at it as like, oh, the couch. Go lay on the couch. Well, that's not what actually happens. You go into a psychologist, they probably have a couch in there. And if you said, do you want me to lay down on the couch, they're going to say, you do whatever's comfortable. I mean, sitting on a couch, you can sit on a couch. You can have multiple people on a couch. You can put your feet up on a couch. So you're not just going to go sit on a couch if you go to a psychologist. Clinical psychologist helps people overcome problems, things like depression, maybe PTSD, kind of stress disorders. Maybe they even diagnose some disorders with them. They work in hospitals, prisons, clinics, and they have their own private practice. If you go and talk to a psychologist, they're going to interview. They need to get to know you. They need to find out who you are, to figure out what the deal is. And I want you guys to understand something. If you broke your arm, okay, you're going to go to the doctor, and you're going to go in there and say, doctor, my arm, it really hurts. And the doctor's going to take an x-ray. All right. And they're going to look and say, well, look at that. Look at there. You see that crack? And they're going to look at that little film. You got a broken arm, and they're going to put a cast on it. You're going to put it on there for 4 to 6 weeks, take the cast off, and the bone comes back even stronger. In psychology, it's not like that. You come in and you say, things are a little different. I don't understand what's going on mentally for me. They can't just take an x-ray of your brain and say, oh, hey, looky there. Looky there. You got a crack in your brain and you got high anxiety. We're going to wrap your head in a cast, hold it there for 6 weeks, and you'll be okay. All right? It doesn't work like that. It's kind of hard to diagnose things. So they have to interview you, find out who you are. They'll give you some tests, like multiple choice tests, that, whichever way you pick it kind of tells them kind of who you are as a person and how you react to situations, your relationship with family, friends, other people, your job, anything in life. So again, most people are clinical psychologists, 48 to 50%. And then there's a psychiatrist, exactly like a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, except for, boom, it's a medical doctor. They went to med school. They can prescribe medication. So you go to a psychologist or psychiatrist, and they do the same thing. They can diagnose your disorders and stuff like that, but they can prescribe medication. All right. So a counseling psychologist, Find these in schools. You guys have probably dealt with counselors quite a bit. They treat people who have adjustment problems. They treat conflicts and not disorders. You'll find them in businesses and schools, and they encourage clients to clarify goals, meet challenges, and overcome adjustment problems. Now, here, adjustment problems are something new in life, maybe a new job, maybe you move somewhere. And sometimes people have a tough time adjusting to that. Think about counselors in school. When you come into school, if you come to a new school, sometimes the counselors kind of look out for you. You come to a new school, like into the high school as a freshman, counselors are kind of paying attention. We have mentors and everything to help those things out. Counselors also work with your schedule, which is clarifying goals. And other things in life, like at college, if you attended a college, they're going to have counselors there. If you're new in a business, they're going to have counselors to help you out in dealing with things, adjusting to different things in life. If you have a death in the family, grief counselors help you out, and that is a very great tool to deal with. There is an entire process of grief that almost everybody goes through, and counselors can hold your hand and guide you through that. Counselors are also there in an adjustment problem in marriage. Marriage is very difficult. I mean, think about you guys. You're on your own, and then you decide to get married, and now you share a bed with somebody else. I mean, you've been sleeping in bed by yourself for all these years, and now somebody comes in and shares it with you, and they steal your covers, they snore, they kick you, they roll over on you. I mean, it is, and which side of the bed are you going to sleep on? I mean, there are a lot of things. Folks, let me tell you something, and I'm going to say this right now, and a couple of you guys are going to nod your head, and some of you guys are going to, I have no idea what this is. There is a certain way to put toilet paper on the toilet paper roll. And some of you guys are going, well, yeah, I know. It goes over the top. All right. Some of you are like, who cares? All right. Those are little issues that it's just like, oh my goodness, which laundry detergent to buy, how to do laundry. Husbands do it one way and wives do it another. And it's a big ordeal that you deal with. So counselors are there to help marriages too, marriage counselors, and to help when somebody's going through a divorce too, or something like that. All right, these next two psychologists have to do with schools. There's a school psychologist and an educational psychologist. Know the difference. A school psychologist helps students who have problems that interfere with learning. They have some sort of learning disorder, and these people will administer tests to these young men or women, and then they advise teachers on what the teacher can do to make an adjustment. And what they do is they write something called an IEP, which is an individual education plan. And that individual education plan will tell teachers the accommodations that we have to give to those particular students. And it can be something very, very simple, like give them verbal instruction, not just written, give them both. Give them a preferential seat. Maybe they have a test read to them. Maybe have extended time on a test. Who knows it? I've had some students that have had ADHD, which is attention deficit and hyperactive disorder, and I would have to give them a little fidget, almost like a fidget spinner. All right, I've never given a fidget spinner, but it's little balls that they could kind of squeeze so they could kind of let some energy out. So a school psychologist works with students who have learning disorders, and some have very severe learning disorders. You can tell. Others, and I'm sure there are a couple of you on here that actually have an IEP, and you wouldn't even be able to tell if you talk to the person. And that doesn't mean they have bad grades. They might have good grades. They might be very, very intelligent, but they're just something that gets in the way of learning and showing people what they have learned. Then there's an educational psychologist. These people study students as a whole, and they write textbooks. Okay, they write textbooks to tell me how I'm supposed to teach a particular class. Okay, and how students learn the best. They give me methods on how to instruct students. They study all students, not just individuals. They also help prepare ACTs, SATs, MAP tests, end of course exams. They're standardized achievement tests. Standardized means they're the same the whole time. Okay. Developmental psychologist. These guys study the changes that occur throughout a lifespan. and several different kinds of development, not just physical development. Physical development is one. Emotional development. Think about how you were in middle school, all right, and your emotions and how you took things way too far, and now you're just like, not that big a deal. Cognitive development. Cognitive is your thinking and understanding, and the development over the course of time. And social development, how people develop socially, how they become friends. I think about my two boys. I remember when they're in third grade, I used to sit there and we'd see a girl and I'd say, "Hey, check that girl out." And they're like, "What are you talking about, Dad?" And then all of a sudden, one time, I noticed them going, my boys going, like looking at the girl or something, and I could tell their social development was changing. They were getting into girls and stuff like that. They look at heredity versus environment. Heredity is your genetics, and the environment is how you're raised. We're going to talk a lot more about that in class. And they work a lot with adolescents. I hope this is not you guys while you're doing online learning and stuff like that when you should be watching this. Okay. Personality psychologists, they identify characteristics or traits in different people and similar characteristics and trait and call that a personality. And then they share this with clinical psychologists. If you go see a clinical psychologist, they may give you a personality test, and find out like how your personality is. And people have different personalities, and they deal with internal forces. Your personality is internal. Okay. It's your personality is within yourself. Okay. And then the next is a social psychologist. They deal with, I thought I had a picture there. They're concerned with behavior in a social setting. They deal with external forces, things outside of you. They deal with issues about behavior. Why do people act the way they do? Why do people decide to do some of the things they do? They deal with attraction, and how are men attracted to women? How are women attracted to men? How are some men attracted to men? How are some women attracted to some men? How people are attracted to both? They look into that. And I want you guys to understand there's some controversial things in psychology, but we don't necessarily judge. We see it and we try to find out why. Why is this the case? Conformity. Why do people conform? Why don't people conform? Why do people break the rules? All right. And obviously we look at prejudice. All right. Prejudge. That's what prejudice is. Okay. Judging, it's prejudge, judging before you get to know somebody or anything like that. We see that all the time. And folks, guys, I mean, some of you have never met me. All right. And you're judging me right now. You are judging me. And that's okay. All right. You're like, this guy's kind of an idiot, or this guy's seems kind of cool. I don't know what you're thinking about me. It happens in class and all that. And we have those first impressions and we judge people. And social psychologists look at it, how we do that. And are we right? Sometimes that first impression is right. Sometimes it's not. Hey, come here. Here, let me introduce you to somebody. This is my dog. This is Lucy. Say hi, Lucy. She's not saying hi. Anyway, this is our dog. It's a Dotson mini pinscher. And if you were to come to my house, this dog would bark at you a lot. Loud and obnoxious. Sorry. Nice break there. An experimental psychologist. Don't know what that picture is. It's not coming up. Experimental psychologists, they're the ones that conduct research and do experiments in psychology. What they do is they do the experiments, then they turn around and tell like the educational psychologist, the clinical psychologist, all the other psychologists, they'll say, this is what we found. And then they put that into practice. Okay. They do the research. We're going to get into research in chapter 2. All right. Here are the applied specialists. All right. The first one is an industrial and organizational psychologist. Their job is to make more efficient workers, not to make the workplace necessarily happy or anything. They want to make workers more efficient. If you work a 10-hour day and never take a break, maybe that's not good for productivity, but maybe if you work an 8-hour day and get 15-minute breaks and a lunch break, maybe in those 8 hours, you produce more stuff than you do in 10 hours because workers get a break, they get their mind off it or something like that. That's what they look at. What color do we put on the walls? Maybe improving working conditions. What color helps people work better? What music? what type of chair. And that's what the Google video is about. Industrial organizational psychologists go in and they check these things out. You also call industrial organizational psychologists HR. HR stands for human resources, and most companies have a human resources. They deal with the people and the workers, and that's what an industrial and organizational psychologist does. Environmental psychologists, they deal with how the environment affects behavior. I mean, do people act different in, Miami? I'm going to Miami. Anyway, or versus Juneau, Alaska? Is the behavior different? Probably so. Maybe the environment, people in the mountains, they live in that type of environment, scary environments. How does the environment affect behavior? And actual, like the weather environment, mountains, trees, stuff like that. The consumer psychologists, they study the behavior of shoppers. Okay, like if you go to a grocery store, what is the one, when you have to go to the grocery store and get one thing, what is it? And you say it. Yeah, you're right. It's milk. Most people, when they go to buy one thing, it's like milk. You got to go back to the store for milk. Where's the milk? It's all the way in the back of the store. You got to walk through other aisles to get to the milk. And if you go to Price Chopper in Platte City, and I'm sure in most of the grocery stores around the area, you grab the milk and you turn around, you know what you see? You see the hostess section. Ding dongs, ho-hos, Twinkies, all those things. And you're sitting there and you're going, you know what goes good with milk? Ho-hos. All right? Those fudge brownies, the Cosmos that got the colorful little things on them. I mean, eat one of those and have a glass of milk. Oreos are right down the other aisle. I mean, that's heaven right there. And so that's what a consumer psychologist studies. They study how wide do you need the aisles? Where do you put the cereal? Do you realize that the cereal, the sugary cereal, and the stuff that has little prizes inside, they're in the lower middle shelf because little kids can see them. Up above is like that whole grain stuff that tastes like wood that the people, you got to go find it, and because nobody buys it except people that are trying to like eat healthy and everything. But that stuff, that isn't healthy, it's right there so kids can see it. All right. Forensic psychologist. Okay. This is in the criminal justice system. They work in the criminal justice system. And here's what they do. They testify about the competence of a defendant. They don't interview serial killers and stuff like that and say, let's find out why this guy killed these people. And that's one of the things a lot of people are interested in. But they actually interview witnesses and people that are, especially they'll interview somebody that is accused of a crime to make sure that they're competent to stand trial. Like they know they did something wrong, or they have the ability to know they did something wrong. I'm going to give you an example where a person actually got the insanity plea and did not go to prison for a ton of years. Did go to get mental health. A man by the name of John Hinckley Jr. John Hinckley Jr. shot President Reagan, tried to kill him. And when he went to trial, they asked him, they said, why did you shoot President Reagan? And he said, because Jodie Foster told me. Jodie Foster was the hot, young, up-and-coming actress in the late 70s. She was just in a movie called Taxi Driver. And he thought he thought she wanted him to go kill her. He wanted to impress her or kill President Reagan. He wanted to impress her. He was schizophrenic. So they took pictures of his brain and pictures of other schizophrenics' brain, compared them, and then compared them to a normal brain, and they found out that he was schizophrenic. He had no idea he did anything wrong. Matter of fact, within the last 5 years, he has been released from it's a mental hospital that contains the patients and everything. Kind of a prison, but a mental hospital. He has been released to his mother, and he is not in any custody or anything like that. And nobody really cared. Everybody understood. All right. He didn't understand what he did or why he did it. And so that's what a forensic psychologist checks out. Health psychologists, they show that they study the relationship of health and behavior and health, being healthy and behavior, which they have found a lot of times the healthier you are, the better your behavior. Human factor psychology, they look at product design. What is the best way to design products to actually help people use a product? I mean, I guarantee you, my iPhone, I mean, these iPhones, they have done research to find out if these people, how people are going to use them and what is the best shape to make and stuff like that. The best shape for toys, for kids, things like that. And how it affects their daily life, the safety of the product, everything. A community psychologist, they study and create social systems that promote and foster individual well-being. They deal with the social environment. So, for example, in your community, you probably have somewhere to go exercise. In Platte City, we have a YMCA. Down on Berry Road at Berry School, they've got the YMCA football field. There are exercise places. There are trails you can walk. I know there's a trail there by Berry School that goes by Costco and all the way over by Amity Road in Platte City. I live right by a walking trail that I can walk 4 miles every day on a trail and not have to go on a road. Biking trail as well. I could bike 4 miles. I could bike anymore. We have swimming pools. We have sports, Chiefs, Royals. There's Starlight Theater. We have an art museum. We have a World War I museum. We have Starlight Theater where we can go see plays and stuff. We can go to the zoo. We got the Sprint Center. There are a lot of things in the community to foster the individual well-being. Don't forget libraries. Okay, we have schools, things like that. We have online school. I didn't know if you knew that. A rehabilitation psychologist, they work with patients who are struggling with the effects of a disability. Folks, let's say you were in an accident and you were paralyzed from the waist down. You got to live the rest of your life like that. That is, I mean, physically that is hard. Psychologically, that is very, very difficult. And there are psychologists that help people rehabilitate mentally in dealing with the loss of an arm or the fact that they have cancer or something like that. And then cross-cultural psychologists, they study how disorders work in different cultures. For example, what is depression like in China? What's depression like in America? What's depression like in Mexico? In different cultures and things like that. And is there anxiety in these other cultures? Do they have more anxiety, less anxiety? How are these things different in each culture? Finally, comparative psychology. They study animal behavior and they try to compare animal behavior to each other and even to humans. Psychologists do study humans. Oh man, I don't have any of the pictures. I had some cool pictures on here. Dang it, I didn't come up. So anyway, please watch the Google video. I think you'll find it fascinating and be like, man, I want to go work at Google. Second of all, you need to get this assignment done. You could follow along with this and end up filling it out as you go. I don't care. But anyway, that covers section 2. And that's all you got to do this weekend. I'm going to tell you, if you guys aren't watching this stuff, I'm going to start putting code words throughout it and making you turn it in. Okay. There's no assignment to go with this right now. We got an assignment on Monday. I'm going to have you guys do something, and you need to make sure you're watching these videos. I want you to learn psychology. Okay. I want you to know what these things are. And some of you guys might end up actually wanting to go into the psychology. It's not just a clinical psychologist, not just a psychiatrist. It's people that work at work. It's people that work at grocery stores that try to figure these things out. Okay. And, you're supposed to look up 5 others, and you're going to find others that like, oh, hey, I didn't know psychologists did that. So make sure that you watch these. if you're listening to me right now, you've watched it. So I'm probably not talking to you. I'm probably talking to people who've not watched it. Hey guys, have a good weekend. And again, if you have any questions, please email me. It is perfectly all right. I don't know how things are going on your end. You don't turn in an assignment, I just put in a 0. Okay. You need to turn in assignments. I don't know if you're having trouble or anything. You just got to let me know. So, all right. Where are we? I got to stop this or something. How do I stop this? Okay. Play. What's going on? Pause. Play. How do I? Am I even doing this? What's going on? Sorry, you had to hear me.